do you think, or how do you feel about your identity in relation to Manitowoc? So how do you feel about what it means to be from Manitowoc? We also want you to take this Arches paper and create a self-portrait on it. And we know that that might be a daunting idea for many people to think of themselves as being able to do a self-portrait. I've heard many times when we've thrown it out there that people will react with, oh, I can only do a stick figure. In this case, we want you to go a little bit beyond that. Try to extend yourself as an artist, and remember that everybody can be an artist. And as you, actually, one of the things that we've talked about internally, as you listen and watch what Sonia is doing today, we want you to react in the comments section. We'd love to have your comments and questions during this. But I also want, in the comments section, if you could react to this. We've talked about possibly bringing in an art instructor to give you a little bit of basics on what it means to create, or how to create, a self-portrait. Would you be interested in us doing a short, either live stream with an artist to teach you how to do self-portraits, or if we have a recording that we can share with you on how to just basically do a self-portrait? Please react in the comments section and let us know whether that's something that you'd like to do, because we want to encourage you. We want to give you the confidence to be able to participate in this portrait project. So again, you can grab one of these kits at the Rahr West Art Museum, day or night. It's outside in a small box for you to grab from, and you can also return them to the Rahr West once they're completed. And we want to get them all by January the 31st. We're giving you a lot of time during this next few months to get this portrait, a self-portrait, done, and then we want you to bring it back, and we're going to exhibit them all in 2021 as a celebration of who we are as a community here in Manitowoc. We hope that you'll take part, and we hope that you'll take part today by, again, commenting, asking questions in our comment section. I've probably talked enough already, so I'm going to throw a few questions at Sonia as she works on it. Sonia, this is a situation where you started with a live model, and now you're working off of photograph to continue the process. First of all, how common is that, and how difficult is it to shift from a live model into a photograph?
Well, I would say that, it's probably not, I'm going to guess that it's not the most common. Usually if an artist is working from a model, they're full-on working from a model. But it is possible, that they just get a model for the initial photograph or the initial block-in, such as what I did here. So some of the differences, I guess, would be that, when you have a model in person, I think the biggest thing is color and value. So when we see somebody in person, you can really see and pick out the different shifts in their skin tones and how dark or how light something really is. Whereas like with a photograph that I'm working from, a photograph will always flatten the object or person that you're painting. So you really have to think more structurally about value, how to kind of bring that forward and backward to make it have the actual structure of a human head or whatever you're painting. But also with the color, it just a photograph generally is not going to give you the same color that you would be able to see in person. So that's kind of a disadvantage. But what I try to always think about, like when I was working on Katie's, I had a second session of hers that I did at home. When I was doing hers, I was thinking about, okay, like I remember that, you know, the highlight on the side of her face was a little bit more of a blue highlight versus a yellow or pink or whatever color highlight. So there's some things that I try to take mental notes of from the live session that will help me with the session from a photograph.
And how common, you're working from photographs, how common is it to just work right from the beginning off of a photograph versus doing a live model?
Well, I'd say in pandemic times, very common. Before that, I would say it's pretty common also, just because it is really hard sometimes, depending where you live, what you have access to. It's hard to get people to sit for you. It's not an easy job. You want to make sure that models are paid and that they're comfortable. And oftentimes, you know, like if I were to want to hire a model, I would at least want 4 hours in a session with that model. So, yeah, I have worked from other models before, and I love doing it. I think it's the best way to learn is from, you know, painting from life, but it's just not always something that every artist can do. So I would say that, you know, it's getting more and more common to paint from photographs.
Do you think technology, I mean, not just technology in general, but like the last few years of technology has made it easier, or has it made it kind of more so common or almost acceptable that people are getting away from live models?
You know, it's kind of hard to say, I guess. I don't exactly know what other artists are doing, but I know that, you know, for traditional artists, other traditional artists really stress how important it is to, you know, even if you're going to work from photographs, like that's fine, but if you have the opportunity to work from live models, do it, because there's nothing like learning from a live model. So I think, you know, with technology, it's definitely something that happens more often, but I highly recommend trying to get some live models in your sessions if you ever can.
And we're very thankful for the live models that we've had during our
Yeah.
previous live streams.
Definitely.
Give them a shout out right now.
For
I'm going to
sure.
let you continue to work for a little while. I'll be back to ask some more questions, both questions from us and questions from any of our viewers out there. If you are a viewer, please make sure you keep all of your questions and comments coming in the live stream. And for the time being, you can see the great work that Sonia's doing right now live at the Rahr West Art Museum. We'd love to have you here in person. We know that you can't right now. We don't know when we'll be able to open again, but we'll be here and certainly be here for you when that time comes. I'll let you go, give you a little bit of quiet so you can continue your work, and I'll be back shortly with our Manitowoc Portrait Project live stream.
So just to fill everybody in with kind of what I'm doing at this sort of second pass, as they call it, with the portrait, I'm kind of just going back over what I had and reinforcing the lines and the values of the painting. So if you were tuned in earlier, but as you can see now also, This has gotten darker all in here. I'm working from a photograph that I manipulated after I initially took it when Keyshawn was sitting for me. I manipulated it a little bit just to give it a little bit more contrast and to help me design a background also. I've been doing this more recently just as something that kind of helps me visualize a background, because sometimes backgrounds can really be even more difficult than the portraits at times. But yeah, so with the portrait, I'm just reinforcing the lights and darks, the lines, the main shapes of blocking in right now. And I'll kind of keep doing this throughout, just reinforcing and reinforcing so I don't lose the actual the structure of the head and the proportions that I had laid out when I first started drawing him with the paint. And so I'm a little bit more, thinking a little bit more about color now than I was before, trying to kind of get those tones in, but still a little bit more focused on the structure.
Hi, we're back. Well, I'm back. You're watching the live stream of the Manitowoc Community Art Project from the Rahr West Art Museum, but you probably already know that because you're on the live stream. We're here in the Rahr West Art Museum, unfortunately closed currently to the public due to COVID-19, but things are still going on here. I want to thank the Coolest Coast for helping us out with the live stream today, and of course the sponsor of this program, the Art Bridges Foundation, that contributed towards us being able to do this. And none of this could happen without the work of our artist, Sonia Vasquez. Sonia is currently working to take kind of next stage of one of the portraits that we're doing as part of the portrait project, and I believe you can see it on the insert. Right now she's working off a photo of our model Keyshawn. Keyshawn sat 2 weeks ago here at the Rahr West, and that's how this portrait started. So now we're kind of taking it next step and moving on in the process. I guess one of the things that I wanted to mention during this, a question for you, Sonia, is about the city of Manitowoc and the Manitowoc community. And I guess more generally, what is it in communities that can be inspiring, or what do you think what are the characteristics of communities that make the arts thrive? You know, we see it, obviously there are some big cities that are always kind of the hallmarks of where art is allowed to really thrive and be a focal point, a civic focal point. Mm-hmm. But also around the country and around the world, there are many small communities that also, where arts is thriving. To put you on the spot, what do you think are some of the characteristics of those communities?
Well, I mean, I said on one of the other live streams, but I used to live in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee has a pretty decent, art scene. Obviously, Milwaukee is much bigger, but I really think, investing in younger people and younger artists is a huge one. That's what we see, for example, in Milwaukee, is that because of the college, likely, there's people going to school there that for art, and they are the creators and driving force of a lot of shows going on there, or events and things surrounding artists, at least from what I saw when I was there. So I definitely think investing in the arts in general is a huge thing for a city to do, that makes not only people that are interested in art, artists, collectors, whatever, but also just people in general really want to stay or to contribute to the community. Art has always been a thing to make cities thrive. So I think it's really important for communities to invest in especially their local artists.
And that gets to the heart of, I think a lot of times, especially with the arts, and I don't know exactly why, that people can have the assumption that arts communities form organically. And in some ways they do. And there is a beautiful romantic feeling about that. But also the arts is intentional. And I think that's one of the things that you're talking about, where you need investment. You need to be conscientious about, what is it that can bring new voices, young artists into a community. Mm-hmm. And those are the types of things that I know the Rahr West is championing within the city and within our community. And hopefully this project is one of those things that really kind of becomes a focal point for the community. I know we're involving a lot of our local schools in it. Oftentimes the first real experiences that young people have with the arts comes out of their art classes, comes out of their schools, and we want our local young artists to take part in this project and really to start to get that feeling, that experience of how art can transform their lives.
Definitely.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience with art as you grew up here in Manitowoc?
Sure. Yeah, so, you know, I am super grateful for the teachers that I had, you know, even when I was living in Reedsville, but most of my growing up was here. The teachers that I had at Lincoln were just like phenomenal. And I was thinking about that the other day, about like how a lot of artists won't ever forget their high school teachers or even middle school or elementary teachers, just because they're so pivotal in making young people feel like what they're doing is important and trying to help them succeed in the art world, even from a young age. And I think that support is so important. If I didn't have the support that I did when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have been an artist at this point. And I think for artists, since we're our like biggest, we critique ourselves the most. I think having a good support system is definitely huge. And like I said, I'll never forget my art teachers at Lincoln, which to shout them out a little bit is Vicki Molitor, Joanna Worley, Barbara Bundy Yost, and I'm trying to think, Rebecca Jabs. So those are a few. I'm sure Molitor, Vicki Molitor remembers us, or me, spending hours and hours of my time in her room when I was in high school. So, yeah.
I know the Rahr West has worked with Manitowoc Public School District really from the time that the museum opened up in this building. Mm-hmm. And we've annually done Youth Art Month. Because of COVID this year, it's much trickier for us to have that same kind of relationship in person, but through our community art portrait project, we do have a pretty solid connection still with the school district. And one of the things that comes up year after year as we do youth art that occurs to me is, again, getting on this idea of all of the kind of the romance that kind of follows the arts. Mm-hmm. This assumption that artists are just born and they might be cultivated a little bit, but you're either born with the skill or you're not born with the skill. Our art teachers, year after year, prove to me how important it is to think of the arts not as something that's just you're born with it type of skill, but something that is honed, and that the arts function not only as a way of beautifying or creating kind of an individual connection that you can't do through other things. Those are all true. There is something that is transcendent about art, but there's also the idea that the arts, and certainly as they are taught, help everybody to learn about the industry of art, meaning that you start with virtually nothing. Mm-hmm. You start with whatever the media you're going to work in, but you start from zero, and it takes refinement, and that's kind of what you're working on right now. And I don't think artists, art teachers get enough credit for the amount of work, and what you learn from art is you need to continuously improve. And those are skills that are needed in our community. People who don't give up on things. people that work hard, understanding that you might need to get to a point where you say, all right, we're going to have to start this over and do it better. And those are tools that the arts teach in a way that really no other subject teaches. Mm-hmm. And our art teachers, so I'm just piggybacking what you're saying, our art teachers do such a valuable service. And it's difficult right now with the inability of showcasing this great work that they're doing in a public way. But I wanted to make sure that we vocalized what it is that the art teachers do for our community.
Definitely. You know, and especially I thinking of, you know, right now, I have a friend who's an art teacher and she's having to teach virtually. And I don't think teachers get enough credit for what they do, because I can't imagine trying to take your whole curriculum and turn it on its head, and suddenly be teaching strictly online. So I definitely give teachers a lot of credit.
Well, again, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to continue to do your work. And again, for anybody who's out there and wants to participate, you can participate right now in the moment by sharing comments or questions that you might have. And we want you to participate long-term as well. You can stop by the Rahr West Art Museum at any time. Outside, we have a box with small art kits that will have information on how to participate yourself, and also a piece of Arch's paper for you to create a self-portrait, and also to answer some questions about how you feel about your identity, what it means to be a part of Manitowoc. This is part of the Manitowoc Portrait Project, which is a community project that we want you to participate in. It's our 150th year of existence, the City of Manitowoc, and we want to get this kind of community-wide identity. Who am I? How do I fit into the City of Manitowoc? And that's part of this community art project. I'll be back to ask some more questions and talk with Sonia, but for now, enjoy her work as she continues with this wonderful portrait of Keyshawn.
So I'm just going to tilt this a little bit, if that's okay. So I'm getting a little bit of glare. Mm-hmm. It's okay now. Yeah. Thank you. So at this point, I'm starting to build up my paint a little bit more. Usually I start pretty thin for block-in and kind of adjusting. Then I work my way up to not adding as much medium to the paint, trying to build up that surface a bit.
Thanks again for joining us on our live stream here at the Rahr West Art Museum with our artist, Sonia Vasquez, and the Manitowoc Community Portrait Project. Thanks again to the Coolest Coast for helping us do this live stream, both through their Facebook page, through the Rahr West Facebook page, and through YouTube. Thank you for joining us. And thanks to our sponsor, Art Bridges Foundation, for contributing towards the arts in Manitowoc. We've got a few more minutes left. If you've tuned in to previous live streams of this community portrait project, you've seen Sonia work with some of our live models, including Keyshawn, who she's using a photo to continue with Keyshawn's portrait. I wanted to ask just real quickly, Sonia, we talked earlier in this session about the difference kind of between a live model and working from photos. But I wanted to ask you, just so that our viewers get a little bit of an idea, about how long does it take to do a portrait from like first brushstrokes to completion? Because we're only showing little snippets here and there through these live streams. About how long does it take you to do a complete portrait?
Well, there are a few factors that would kind of determine that. So it depends on if I'm doing alla prima, meaning all at once, and that means that I'd be doing it in just one session. So usually that's, you know, maybe 4 hours or so. It's a quicker way of just getting a painting in. But if I'm doing a completed painting, it would depend on the size, because obviously the size is gonna matter for how long it takes. But for something like this, I'm going to say, you know, I tend to not really look at the time, because when I'm painting, like, the whole world around me doesn't exist pretty much, which is maybe a bad thing sometimes. Yeah. But I would generally say, you know, maybe I'll work on this another session of a few hours, and maybe I'll be done at that point. So I would say, you know, I've worked on this for 2 hours, so maybe like total 4 hours. If not, maybe closer to 5. It's kind of hard to say, because I mean each one is going to be a little bit different too, but yeah, I would say a rough estimate for one this size, probably about 4 hours.
And are there definitive phases of the portrait process? Yeah. So, you know, this isn't just a situation where we showed 1 hour and now we're showing another, but this is a separate phase than what you were working on when Keyshawn was here 2 weeks ago.
Right. So this phase would be more of, you know, kind of what I was describing earlier, in that I'm making sure to keep the drawing, so to speak, of, you know, the structure, the proportions of his face intact, but bringing it sort of up a level. So adding more paint, thinking about color a little bit more, and just kind of developing it further. And then, you know, my next step would probably be basically doing the same thing. It's just with even less turpentine into my paint, building up the paint a little bit more, possibly going in with glazes at some point, but I have to let this paint dry in between before going over it with another layer, otherwise it will just turn into mud. So that is another factor in the process. So you know, my time painting is different than the actual time that it takes to finish the full-on painting, because I need to have time to let it dry between layers.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. For those of you who have been tuning into these, thank you so much for being a participant in these live streams. We do have another Rahr West live stream coming up with our curator, Diana Bolander, next Wednesday, the 25th of November, right before Thanksgiving, at 3 p.m. She'll be talking about, well, a little bit more about what we have here in the Vilas Rahr Mansion, and that is the doll collection of the Rahr West. Something very unique, something kind of away from the paintings on the walls, and but something that's been cherished by the Rahr West for many, many years. So 3 p.m. on the Facebook and YouTube pages of the Rahr West Art Museum. You can tune in to that and listen and see a little bit more information about our doll collection here at the Rahr West Art Museum. For now, we have a few more minutes left with Sonia as she continues to work on this portrait of Keyshawn. And I want to once again stress that this is a participatory project. The Manitowoc Community Portrait Project is something we want you to take part in. At any point in time, you can stop by the Rahr West Art Museum. We have an outdoor box with small art kits that include directions. They include a question about your identity as part of the city of Manitowoc, and it also has a piece of Arch's art paper for you to create your own self-portrait. And you can do a self-portrait in any type of media on this, and then we're going to collect these, and in 2021 have an exhibition that really celebrates our collective identity as people living in a community here in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, which is a wonderful way to celebrate, maybe a year late, but to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the city of Manitowoc. We're so thankful again for all of the people that take part in these live streams, for our artist Sonia, for all of the models that we've worked with over the past few weeks, especially Keyshawn, who we're working on his portrait right now. I want to thank the Coolest Coast for helping us do this live stream event. And I also want to thank Art Bridges, the sponsor for the Manitowoc Community Portrait Project. And thank you, of course, for tuning in. We hope to see you again. And we hope that this inspires you not only to do your own self-portrait, but inspires you to think of your creative side and to be creative and to be an artist in our community. Thanks.
So before we go, I'm going to do a little shameless self-plug.
Oh, crap.
So I do commissions, and I am totally open to doing commissions, taking commissions. The holidays are usually always a bit busier for me with commissions, but I'm happy to take any. You can check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/Sonia Vasquez Art. You can see some examples of my work there, and I also do these tiny little lockets that are like 1 5/8 inch by 1 7/8 inch. They're pretty neat. People seem to like them. They're a neat gift. So if you're looking for something to shop local this holiday season, definitely send me a message.
And Sonia, for anybody who does want to get something as a gift for the holiday season, what kind of lead time would you need to set that up?
As soon as possible, just because I do take, I take multiple commissions, and most people want them by Christmas Day or before Christmas. So I generally, try to really work with people. And get them what they need before Christmas. So as soon as possible, if you can get them in, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. And for those of you, we had been talking earlier about how to make the arts thrive in your community. You need to be intentional about supporting the arts. I can't think of a better way to support the arts than to work with our artists in our community, to buy from them, to work with them, and allow them to be creative. And we can all be not only artists, but we can be patrons of the arts. So make sure when you're thinking of buying local and supporting our community right now that you're supporting our local artists.